I wanted to finish up with talking a little bit about where we're at in terms of the repair of landscapes and some of the losses that we've had in these landscapes. And I had the great joy last August to have a joint billing with this lady, who many of you will know. Don't need to introduce her. Nobody knows her. Germaine Greer, yeah. And it was really interesting. I told some people in Perth, I was at a business lunch, I said, oh, I'm speaking with Germaine Greer next month, and it was extraordinary. It all came out, all the stuff, you know, from her books and all of other ways. But she spoke to me and she wrote this, that she's seen this country through the eyes of somebody who has been in other battles and saved and worked on saving other things. And she's now had an epiphany. She's now restoring a major piece of wet forest in Eastern Australia. And she sees now the greatest battle for this country is Australians connecting, protecting and enhancing our natural resources. And really eloquent. I think we're going to see a lot more from her. And why is this important? Because this is today's newspaper, if you saw it. Terrific to see that getting page 9. It's extraordinary. Olympics are over, I guess, is the reason, but good on that. But, you know, these, we sort of, it falls off the tongue, doesn't it? 16 mammals extinct, 6 in the past 15 years, 4 species were added in the last year. Extinction is an extraordinarily devastating concept. If you talk about the extinction of the human species, I'm sure we'll do something quick about it. And I have the great honour to sit on the Federal Threatened Species Scientific Committee. This is the committee that decides on the species that get listed for federal listing. So this is where cannabis comes from, and we get the protection of many rare and wonderful plants and ecosystems through this committee. And the work of that committee is not only astonishing in terms of the scientific rigour in the process, but it's also just heart-wrenching because the workload just keeps increasing, and it's astonishing. But in some respects that workload is stuff that, as an Australian and as a biologist, I'm absolutely delighted to be up to 1 a.m. reading my 700 to 800 pages before each meeting, because it's voluminous, but it's needed. And these are some of the animals that we sadly as a committee can't do anything about to protect. We've lost them. And we will keep cranking up the extinction, or putting our foot on the extinction accelerator, if we're careless and continue careless behaviour. I was speaking to Piers a moment ago about the Green Growth Plan, a euphemism for something which I'm not quite certain what, but they are very much, as we were discussing, I said, it sounds very 60s. He said, I think it's more 70s. It's very much where we were, but we're now on a new journey to a new place. And the Underwood Avenue bushland, and I was just looking at it today, and now that I'm no longer a public servant, and apparently now a noted scientist as of last week, I did my honours degree in there, and I thought it was an astonishing piece of bushland back then. And I think there is no way we, as Australians, should be losing 1 square centimetre of these last precious remnants. Everything sits on a knife edge because things have always been in these stable environments. We've arrived with large-scale changes, and we're not doing enough to repair and bring those back. And of course you can see that this is, I've only got this up to 2005, but it shows you the unrelenting urban spread of Perth, so that we're one of the most sprawl-based cities on Earth, 170 kilometres from north to south. A colleague of mine with the unusual first name of Storm, but his name's Storm Cunningham, and he wrote a book called Re-Wealth, well worth having a look. And he referred to, when we were chatting and he was doing the research on his book, he said, you are really the home of what he calls degenerative wealth. That is wealth created by degenerating the natural capital on which we live. And you don't need to do that. And of course, we now have wiser eyes. And but this is a little sobering reminder, because this is me. That's a bulldozer, and you'll see I get ordered out. Yep, there you go. Bugger off! Who are you? That's a little place called Honeywood. You heard of Honeywood? A fabulous piece of Banksia woodland. I was there, devastated, got that little bit of footage, and I thought, isn't that amazing? Just 2 years ago, we're still knocking over Banksia woodland. And I just think, how tragic is that? And there were so many things. There were Liginias, there were orchids, Mitrasacmes, you name it. They're all in there. And I just thought, this is astonishing that this could happen. But I think we're in a good space. Even though we've got amazing, this is the state, the percentage of threatened species to priority ecological communities sitting in the Swan coastal plain area, and we carry a great weight. And this is what we started with Banksia woodlands. That's all the green. This is a map that's shortly come out in our book that's coming out on Banksia woodlands. That's what we had. That's what we've got left. That's the red bits. Now you all know that, so we've destroyed 60% of it. I'm bringing this up with you because the exciting news is that, as you know, there's a listing for Banksia woodlands of the Swan coastal plain. It's sitting with the federal department. That listing is now in its final stages. The great news is the boundary that you see there is the boundary. All those little bits of red all those little pieces of red will be enshrined and protected if it now goes through up to the minister. So we're very close to finally saving the last 40% of our Banksia woodland. So the little bit of honeywood that we saw happening, I hope that is consigned to the archives along with a lot of other footage that of past devastation that we've done. So although there's bad things that have happened, I think we're now in a space through the federal process where we're going to see that level of protection, and all of these things that are happening with threatened species to priority ecological communities will be part and parcel of that. And it's not just stopping there. There's now a proposal to list all the true woodlands, and I would encourage any other people who want to talk to me about what is the listing process and how to do it. It's very complex, takes a lot of work, but it's a great mechanism, and it will provide every little patch of Banksia woodland with the same protection that Carnaby's has. That's very powerful in the scheme of things, or a rare orchid, or a panda if you're in China, for example. So really interesting days ahead. And I was also mentioning to Piers that one of the intriguing things sitting on the committee is almost anything that we bring up about particularly urban conservation in Western Australia is coming up for listing. It's almost taken as read, because they say you are a place with astonishing levels of degradation and loss. So listing of the wheatbelt woodlands, which was the first multi-listing across a broad landscape of all the woodlands, which happened last year, astonishing document, really encourage you to have a read of it. That would not have happened 30 years ago, but it sailed through with less than an hour's debate on the merits of listing the wheatbelt woodlands. We all know they're essential and critical, but nationally it's very clear that Western Australia has a very sad tally, and so the process is very clear. And this is my own personal experience. Can you hear that? Yeah. This is my own 160 acres, which I took over last November. I didn't know it, but I have all 3 cockatoos. Wow. The red tails, annoying. I just wish they learnt to go to sleep at a reasonable time. I've got 2 large lakes on the property, which of course are prime water sources. This is in the hills just above Waroona. That's one of the highest points above Waroona. The property extends over the back. And I took that just a week ago because 170 Carnabys arrived to sit at the lake. And I was like astonished. And And looking at them, I was not only overjoyed, but also reminded that we had corralled them into these last vestiges. And I want to leave this planet knowing that we have preserved and protected them. That Banksia woodland listing is probably the biggest single gift we could give to Carnaby's at this point in time. With the other side being, we should buy all the macadamia and almond plantations in Western Australia and hand them over, because that's a wonderful temporary forage resource. And it's something I've been promoting with a number of people. Instead of doing offsets, let's just buy the macadamia plantation, let's buy the enormous almond plantation, the pistachio plantations out near Corrigan, which Carnaby's think is absolute junk food for them, but it's such critical food and they get high calorific value for very little effort. And that wonderful article that was in the Ed West about 3 months ago on Carnaby's, if you didn't get it, I'm happy to send you a copy. I've got it, which talks about the effort a Carnaby's goes through to chew through either a Banksia cone or a Marinut, and the small amount of energy it gets out. So that's why I'm saying, if you don't have macadamias and pecans in your garden, plant them now, because Carnaby's will love you forever. The little we have left is well worth protecting. This is work that we've been doing now for the last 11 years in Kings Park. It's something that I picked up, that we were losing our remnant large trees in all of our bushland. And when I went along the coastal plain, I could see it happening right up north and south. It wasn't chewits, but it was marries, and it was particularly jarrahs very early on. And it would affect them by them firstly going yellow. We called it Chlorotic Decline Syndrome, CDS. You get what's called intraveinal chlorosis. We thought it was an iron deficiency. We now know it is manganese, which is interesting. It's a very rare trace element that causes this chronic deficiency. They will stag head, and that marry, the chewit, is adapted to alkaline conditions. The marry is not. That's got about 3 years to go before it will die. And these important framework plants that are remnants of those bushland need to be managed. And we've now discovered the whole reason this is a phenomenon is because we're pumping water from alkaline aquifers. And that alkaline water locks up the manganese almost instantly. 2 simple solutions: stop watering your lawns, easy to do, or you put manganese supplements. We developed a system. I actually went to Bunnings and bought a Karcher, you know those sprayers? Because I worked out we could put manganese feed into these probes, drilled out some holes, and we were able to save one of our most significant jarrahs in Kings Park, which is sitting not far from the Warming Well, by doing those injections. And we're now trying to do those injections, but we're now trying to inject and acidify at source the water coming in through the irrigation system in Kings Park. But all up and down the Swan Coastal Plain on the western part, you'll see this Chlorotic Decline Syndrome. We're trying to encourage local councils to change their watering practices to protect those species.